Hi, so I just wanted to give a quick introduction to Plinth and how it works both for local organizations who want to use Plinth to manage their own projects and programs, and for infrastructure organizations who want to use it to understand what's going on across a wider area. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to give a quick demo as how it works for a local organization first, and then we'll go on to how you can use that platform to understand what's going on across multiple different organizations in the same area. So first, what you're going to do, you're going to go to plinth.org.uk and click login. If you already have an account, you'll be taken to a dashboard that looks a little bit like this. And as you can see, what you've got here is basically quick access to all the information you might need to run your activities, services that you have as a small organization based in a local community. You've got information about how many different sessions you're running, how many attendances, what's going on this week, case notes that have been written, and new people that have been added to your account. So typically what people do when they first start using Plinth is they'll go here, they'll have a list of people that they're going to be recording that they're working with. So this page here will show you a list of their contact details and some basic information, and also some key statistics about where everyone comes from. But obviously to get to this point, you need to add some people. So I'll show you how you do that now. All you have to do is click add new members. You can create a registration form that can be very, very simple, can just be a name. Or you can have something a bit more complicated like this that has lots of different questions, and you can decide exactly what you want to ask. You can go in here, you can edit these questions. We've got some sort of template questions, things like ethnicity, gender, postcode, date of birth, but you can add literally anything you want. It can be a text field, it can be a drop down, it can be a number, it can be a postcode, it can be a date. Whatever you need to record, you can do that with Plinth, and then you can add it directly to a registration form. And the best thing about these registration forms is you can share them really easily. So you can share them, you can send out a link to people on WhatsApp or an email. You copy and paste this code and put it directly on your website. Or you can copy this QR code and put it on a poster, and then people can register themselves as they arrive at a venue that you run. So once people have added onto this page, once they've had some details input here, they'll appear in this list. And so then anyone in the organization can search through this list and can find these people and get to their profile page. So the profile page will have a series of different information about them that's recorded on that form. It will have which projects they're part of. It might have which admins or caseworkers they work with. You have a quick map of where they live, complete with which borough and ward they're in case anyone gets funding that's based on that. And it has a map of which volunteers they work with if, for example, they're running a befriending scheme or something similar to that. On the right-hand side, this is the most interesting bit. You have a list of all of the activities this person's turned up to, a list of case notes that have been written about this person, and a list of surveys that they've filled out. So that on Plinth, you can combine case management, surveys for things like impact measurement, and also bookings and registers for all of your different activities. So I'll show you how this works. Essentially, it's really quick. You just type a quick note in here with whatever. You type that in. You can add things like outcomes. So these are like structured things like got into a more job or felt more confident. You can add the time spent if you're recording the case notes. So if you want to say that this person spent 30 minutes with you. And you can also control the privacy of it. So you can choose who exactly can see it, whether it's everyone, just me, or select individuals who can actually view this note. And when you save it, it will show up down here and it's accessible for everyone on the Plinth account. From this page, you can also run a few quick little extra things, like you can run surveys. So this survey here, if I fill it out, will show up directly on Aisha's page. You can also set up reminders, get benefits checks linked to the Policy and Practices Better Off calculator, which will tell them how much benefits they may be able to claim. And you can do things like export all the notes into a Google Doc, send them an email, view a QR code, or even refer this person to another organization, which then sets up a secure referral from one organization to the other, all done within Plinth. So there's no risk of those details going astray. The other thing that's really useful on Plinth is that you can record and list all of the activities and services that you're running. So if you look at this calendar here, you've got all of the different sessions that are going on, some happening every week, some just happening once. And then on each activity, you can get a lot of information about what's happening. And you can do things like take registers, so checking in everyone who's actually turned up. You can record the volunteers that you've worked with. You can set up a session plan or a review. But you can also make public pages where people can view the details of this session and also book directly onto it. So this looks a little bit like this. You walk through the details you add, you can add some nice pictures, set up some who can book and how to collect information. Add some information about accessibility, your organization, and then you can publish it. And what that looks like is something a bit like this. So you'll have a page that shows what's going on, who's running it, how you can contact it, where it's happening, and then an option to quickly book onto that session directly. This is great because what it does is it collects all the information about the person booking automatically without needing an admin to collect those details. And it allows that person to book directly onto the session so that they know that they can actually turn up when they arrive and that they'll be able to access this service or activity. And when those bookings come through, they show up on this page, which will show everyone who's booked and all of their details with an option to print it out, email everyone, export it to Excel, or add bookings themselves manually. So the great thing about this is obviously it makes it much easier for an organization to plan who might be able to turn up. Of course, you don't have to take bookings. You can record people just as they walk in the door through the register. It's really set out to be kind of as flexible as possible so that different organizations who work in different ways can manage their own organization how they want to. So this combination of people and activities and attendances combines into something really useful, which allows organizations to get quick and easy reports into anything that's going on across their organization. So on here, you'll see this has a list of all the different projects, how many people have turned up, how many different events they've run, how many hours of provision they've provided to individuals, how many different attendances they've had, all for exact time periods across all those different projects. So this can be fantastically useful for things like monitoring and reporting for funders, but also just to understand what's going on a day-to-day basis across the organization. So as well as this little table view, there's also the options to see things split by different projects in a bar chart, see things over time, see things in a pie chart, and even see things on a map, which can be really useful just for understanding exactly where all the people you're working with come from. And one of the things that is also true is that because we know that a lot of people work better with names rather than numbers, on all of these graphs, every time you click on something, it will show you exactly who made up those statistics. So you can really understand exactly what's going on across your organization. And obviously, because some organizations are more able to use these kinds of reporting tools than others, we've also added some things to make things easier. So if you ask Pippin, our little AI helper, you can ask a general question just written in English, and Pippin will do its best to answer that question about how many different people were helped last month, or things like how many hours of service we provided in a given year. You can type it in English, and then Pippin will answer the question for you, which can be really useful. Pippin is also really useful for writing bids and applications for grants. So the way this works is it uses AI to combine information from lots of different existing sources into one application that you can use to get a quick first draft for what you want to apply for. So the way it works is you go and find a grant program website, like for example, National Lottery. You copy and paste the link, put it in here, click get information, and what we'll do is we'll look for information about that. And so once the information is found on there, you can put in some details about a project you want to run. We'll save some previous projects for you if you've done it multiple times. And then this will collect together some feedback from the AI. So it will ask you some questions like, for example, what problem is the project addressing or who's going to benefit? But the best thing about this is that these questions are generated and they're very specific to each project. So it will change the answers, the questions that it's providing each time. And once you're happy with that, you can make as many changes as you like. You go on to the next stage where you can upload some files, for example, some previous grant applications or some monitoring reports or some impact reports from the end of the year. And then we're going to use these files to write and provide evidence to the grant application. So if we select this one and click next, it might ask us to choose which grant we want to use, but we'll go for this one here. And then essentially we're going to get some feedback on this, which will show us whether this project is eligible for the grant. So if you click this button here, it'll give you some ticks and crosses as to things that you can benefit from, and then ways to help shape your application to fit better into the eligibility criteria for this grant. So you can see here, There are some things that are fits and some questions about whether we need to improve it. But I'm just going to go ahead and write this anyway. I'll select this old application to use, and I'm going to click this fill out using AI button. What it's going to do is it's going to draft a few different options, a way of structuring this, and then we're going to write this project details based on the application form from previously and also from the project description we gave it. And what we'll do is we'll reference back to everything that we've uploaded. So, for example, this here is talking about how Hull is struggling and there's a lot of families living in poverty, and that's come from our old application that's already pulled that out and used it as a reference. And so if this is obviously a nice quick first draft, but if we're not happy, we can also use this button to edit with AI. So we can change the length of it, we can make it shorter, and then it will usually quite dramatically reduce the length of it. Or we can do things like change the tone. So we can ask it to be perhaps a bit angrier, which we usually write slightly more emotionally and less, and will then, perhaps that might be a better fit for the application. Or you can give it some direct feedback. Like for example, you could suggest not to mention particular parts of the project because they're not relevant to this fund. From here, you can also then get some direct feedback across all of the application. We get some feedback. This will essentially give some more structured feedback about how you may want to improve the application, which can be pretty useful just to then give some last bits of information before you submit. When you do submit it, you can print it out into PDF, but you do have to submit it directly on the funder's website. We don't do the submitting in a lot of cases at the moment. So this is kind of, I guess, the main ways in that we can help individual organizations using Plinth. They can record information about all their clients. They can record information about their volunteers. They can record information about the activities they run, and then collect impact measurement data and apply for grants or help draft applications for grants across Plinth. And that's obviously all really useful for individual organizations, but it can also be really helpful for infrastructure organizations who want to support multiple different groups across their area. And I'll go and show you how that works. So for infrastructure organizations, you can do a lot of different things through Plinth, which allow you to work with multiple different groups. So a few of the key things you can do here, you can take grant applications and do monitoring and reporting of your grant funds. You can build up a central page of all the activities going on across an area. And you can do things like volunteer brokerage across multiple different projects and multiple different organizations. So I'm going to start quickly by showing you how you can build up a page showing all of the activities happening across your local area. So the way you do that is from this slightly different looking version of Plinth, you go onto the activities page. You can see all the activities that are being run by all the different organizations that you're connected with. And then you can compile them together into one central page here. So this is how it works on the back end. But on the front end, what this looks like is something like this. So you've got a little cover page that has information about what's going on. And then if you go on and search activities, you can see all of the different things that are happening across an area. You can see who's running them, how much they cost, so people can take payments directly through Plinth as well. But a lot of these activities will typically be free. And then you can search through them. You can add some filters looking for particular organizations, particular areas, categories, weekdays, etc. and search through them, or use these little tags, which can be really helpful just to understand all these different things that are happening. It will also show all of these on a nice little map, so you can see where across an area things are happening and who's running them. So this can be really useful just to build up this understanding of what's going on. But you can also control exactly what's going to show up on that page. So on this section here, you can see all of the sessions that people are suggesting they would like to run. And then you can decide exactly whether those sessions, you can edit them, so you can fix any typos or things like that. And then you can also choose to approve them and then show them on the page directly. And you can pick exactly how this should appear. You can change the branding of the program, the colors, the text that describes it, etc. and choose exactly what categories of activities you might want to have showing up. And once you've got all this set up, what you can do is you can invite organizations to join. So you can basically send a unique link out to every organization you want to work with, and they can then accept it and be part of this sort of wider network of activities happening across the area. But as well as all this activity stuff, you can also record information about grant programs. So to start with, what people would typically do is create a grant application form that looks a bit like this, where you can choose exactly what questions you need, whether they can be text questions, drop downs, radio buttons, and separated in multiple different formats with perhaps options for file uploads and picture uploads, with some extra handy features like the ability to save the application for later or export to a Google Doc. So on this page, once someone's filled out that application, they'll show up in this little table of all the responses. So you can see all the people who applied, all of their answers. You can see some nice little graphs of the different kinds of applications you've got. You can see all of the pictures in a little gallery. But you can also set up reviewers. So you can add lots of different people to this account, and then you can assign those reviewers directly to individual activities. And what's really useful about that is that on this page, you can then see who's been assigned to review it and the scoring that they've been given. So you can then see across this exactly how they've scored this, which you can then use to assess and filter the applications and make decisions on where the money should go. But of course, the application is only the first step. The second step is obviously understanding what's happening with that fund once you've given it out. So to do this is really simple. Essentially, you get a list of people as partners, and then on each one, you can go and click here. You can see details about them that you've added for a similar form that individual organizations can use to add people. You can see notes that you might have left about your interaction with them. But crucially, you can also see their performance against any sort of KPIs that you might set. So you could set things like number of individuals they've reached, number of well-being activities they've organized, really anything you would like to on that. And you can see their progress against a target if you want to set one. And so these are sort of like top level KPIs, but you can also go in a little bit deeper and understand really granular data on this individual organization. Like, for example, the number of people they work with each month, or the number of, or the total number of activities they're running, or things like where people are traveling from to get to this organization, which can be really useful to understand in a bit more detail what's going on in the organizations that you fund. You can also see really simply things like more qualitative feedback forms. No. But obviously this is just one organization. And if you wanted to get it across all the different organizations, you can set up some key KPIs across a dashboard, which will add up those numbers across all the different organizations that you fund. So you can get a nice little bar chart view, which shows progress towards targets. You can see the key stats or things on the table. And then for each one, if you click on it, it will show you the composition of that. So which organizations are doing, how they're doing on each individual KPI, and also how that varies over time. And so you can see that really clearly. You can also, if you want to, map that to things like a social return on investment metric. So for every activity organized, it has a social value of a certain figure. And then what we'll do is we'll combine that so you get a total social value for the whole program that you're running. You can also collect more qualitative feedback. So you can set up similar things to the application forms where you ask people to fill out final grant submission forms like this, for example, which will be details about how it went, any feedback they had, or perhaps images and videos from participants that you might want to use in an impact report that comes up later. Finally, Plinth can be really useful for maintaining a list of volunteers who might want to help out across an area, and also a list of people who are looking for volunteers and who they're looking for. The way you do this is you go onto the volunteer section, you see a list of all of the different requests for volunteers people might have put in. So you can see here, these people are looking for a welcome volunteer. And you can see all the volunteers who are interested in this role. You can take them through a whole application process, from interested to contacted to applied to being active. And this is visible both by you as the infrastructure organization, but also by the organization that is requesting those volunteers. And you can share information about those volunteers really easily through this page. You also do some helpful things like see where these people actually live on a map. So if you have a request, you can find people who are really hyper-local to that volunteer request. So as well as the list of volunteer requests, you've also got a list of all of the people who've registered to volunteer, and they'll show up on this page here Obviously, these are a lot of test information, but you can then go on here, click on the person, see information about their profile, see when they're available, see where they live and what skills and experience they have, and then also move them through a process of your own vetting if you wanted to maintain a list of people who've completed a central training that you've got. And you can also search for all these people by location, by their DBS check status, by what skills they might have, by their experience, by which languages they speak. Basically, anything that you put on a registration form, you can then search through. And then in terms of how those volunteers would register, that looks a little bit like this. But you can build this form yourself. You might have some sensible, quick information about the volunteer. So I will register as a test volunteer. And I'll register in North London. And then I might have some other questions that I might need to fill out. So when I'm available, what kinds of activities I'd like to do. And these can be set up by you to describe exactly what kinds of information you need from a volunteer. But you can also see really easily from here as well, a page where you can see all of the... Oh, God. You can also see from here an option to see all of the different volunteer opportunities that are happening across an area. That looks a little bit like this. So you've got all the different opportunities, how many people they need. You can filter them by the different types of activities. And then on each one, you can go there and see the activity, see a description of what they need for the volunteers. And then individual volunteers can register their interest with the same profile that they might have used in other places if they've already saved that. Or they can register afresh. And this will mark this volunteer as interested in that project and will also keep them in the sort of central pool of list of volunteers that you can contact for other opportunities.